tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to say, talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit. There's a big appeal that's hit him on the pad. He's out. Lions gone. New South Wales are 9 down. Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car. Oh, I think it's hit a car. What a way to bring up your 50.
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Cricket Unfiltered. Yes, it's just me this week, Menners solo. Damien couldn't join me, and I'm coming to you a bit later in the week, busy week in Piccolo Podcast Studio. So couldn't record the episode earlier, but it's Saturday afternoon, Australian time. There is lots to talk about, action all around the world. I guess we should start by congratulating Jimmy Anderson. He's now Sir Jimmy Anderson. He's been given a knighthood. So he joins recent cricketers like Andrew Strauss and Alastair Cook being given a knighthood. And I think you cannot deny he's made an immense contribution to English cricket. So the knighthood certainly is justified. So, yeah, well done, Jimmy Anderson, Sir Jimmy Anderson, and, he's probably in the maybe scrapes in the top 20 fast bowlers I've ever seen, maybe top 20, not sure. I'd have to go through the list, maybe in the top 20, probably in the 15 to 20 range of best fast bowlers I've ever seen, but, certainly up there with one of the best medium pacers I've ever seen. And, yeah, great to see Jimmy being recognised for his services to cricket. You cannot deny he promotes the game. He does his podcast, and to be playing professional cricket for over 20 years is quite an incredible achievement. Now, before we get into all the news this week, we've got the Will Pucovski retirement. We've got Aussies in action around the world. We've got some comments from Jason Gillespie around his future as a coach. But before we get there, I just want to say, I mentioned a few weeks ago that maybe we should look at doing some T-shirts for the podcast. Well, a long-time listener, Foxy, has reached out to me, and this is what he does. He can make T-shirts, and so keep an eye out. There'll be Cricket Unfiltered T-shirts coming soon. There'll be a bit of a brand refresh for Cricket Unfiltered, but it was great for Foxy to reach out because he's been listening to the show for over 10 years. I found an email from him, from over 10 years ago. So he's been a fan for a long time, and it's great to see the Cricket Unfiltered community coming together, and hopefully we can get some great stuff to you. I got a sample yesterday. It's really good quality stuff. I don't want any cheap tatty T-shirts that you can't really wear. I want, good quality stuff that you will be able to wear. So, it was great of Foxy to reach out. And, I love the fans of Cricket Unfiltered. Haven't had the opportunity to do any live shows or any events where we can get together, but I love hearing from you. Please email in your questions. Never be shy in getting in touch. I've got listeners emailing me from the States and the UK. Yes, the UK, despite all my rants and raves against the Poms, I haven't offended everybody on that island yet. T-shirts are coming. The Cricket Unfiltered community is thriving, and just on, I guess, show admin, be back next week with Damien Watson for our usual. Well, we record on Wednesday night. It's usually, released late Wednesday night Australian time or Thursday morning Australian time, and that's probably going to be the schedule moving forward, even through winter. We're going to keep ploughing through the episodes, and heading into the World Test Championship final, which is the next big stop on the radar for Australian cricket. Cannot wait for that. I was just sort of thinking about what we're going to do, reviewing that World Test Championship. If possible, I'd like to be going live after every day of that World Test Championship final. and reviewing, that epic match between Australia and South Africa at Lords for the title. All right, let's get into the cricket news. So earlier this week, Will Bukowski announced his retirement from cricket. He was on the Gerard Whateley show on SEN and announced he will no longer be playing cricket. He's moving into coaching at the Melbourne Cricket Club. And there were some reports that the Victorian, the management team at Victorian Cricket were unaware he was going to announce his retirement. But Will on Whateley's show outlined how he's had a very difficult year. He suffered a concussion at the tail end of last season. So I was, fortunate enough to commentate on what I think is his last first-class century. He made it at the SCG versus New South Wales, and I got to commentate and see a lot of that. And shortly after that, he was hit on the head again, and then unfortunately now he's retired. And he said he's had significant trauma around the concussion and in conjunction with mental health, and those two things. There must be a pretty complex intersection, I guess, of the way those two things would react to each other. It's not going to do any good for your mental health being hit in the head, and so yeah, it would have been a really tough road for Will Bukowski, and unfortunately, his career can't continue. So he finishes his test, and I saw his last first-class century up close, commentating on it, and I was there for his one and only test match at the SCG versus India. So he, played one test, made one half century, 62, averaged 36. He played 36 first-class games, averaged 45 with the bat, made 700s and 950s. And he played 14 list day 50-over games, made 100 and 250s, averaging a tick under 28. So they are really good numbers, especially that first-class average of mid-40s when you consider it so early on in his career. And to make, 7 first-class centuries, and some of those were big scores, high score of 255 not out. But I do want to push back on this notion a little bit that, had it not been for the concussions or the mental health, this guy was going to play 100 test matches. I just don't think we'll ever know. I think it's a great unknown, but I don't think you can just say that this guy was going to be a superstar at test level. For whatever reason, he just wasn't quite able to master the short ball a few times. Now, I don't think it was a weakness, but and look, this could be symptomatic of all the things he's been through, but he did towards the end of his career have the tendency to freeze when a short ball was bowled at him, and that's the worst thing you can do. He would just sort of freeze on the crease and be a target for the bowler. You need to be moving across your crease and getting inside the line to avoid being hit, and he didn't do that, and so what I'm saying is, look, I don't want to criticize him. He's still a wonderfully talented player who may have played a lot for Australia, but I just don't think people should be saying, oh, he had 100 tests there for him, and if it wasn't for being hit in the head or concussion, he would have had 100 tests, would have played 100 tests, because I think in the end, sort of test cricket does test every part of your game, and had he got to test level, he would have seen a lot of short stuff, and I don't know. I don't know whether he was equipped to play it. We'll never know. So I just want to push back on saying he was a guy who had 100 tests in his back pocket if he'd been fit. It just wasn't the case. And unfortunately, it was a premature end to his career. And, it's so sad that we couldn't see his career develop and flourish. And, the fact that some of the blows to his head weren't even on the cricket field. They were training. They were, accidents. They were random accidents. The poor kid had so much bad luck, and just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately. But, he still, I guess, got the baggy green, played that one test match, and he did look good. I mean, he was a silky player. Make no mistake about it. He was a bit like Mark Waugh in the sense that he seemed to have so much time at the crease and was so graceful. He was also very patient and knew how to build an innings, which is, such an important commodity. So, he had a lot in front of him, but in the end, it just didn't quite work out. And I think now we'll see him in the media and coaching. And I just wish him all the best for the future. What an awful choice to make about, do I keep trying to follow my dream or do I just say, no, I'm going to prioritize my health. I'm not going to take any more risks. So, yeah, I think actually he got married yesterday. So I'm recording Saturday. He got married on the 11th of April. So congratulations to him. He's got a, exciting life ahead of him. And, I don't think he'll be lost for cricket. Now, some more news. Jason Gillespie was speaking to Wisden Cricket, and he admitted that his coaching experience with Pakistan has meant now he's not interested in a full-time coaching position. He is maybe looking at a part-time position in a T20 league or something. Sorry, a T20 league, a part-time role where you're not committed all year. But after what happened with Pakistan, doesn't want a full-time gig. And in fact, he said to Wisden that even if Australia asked me, I wouldn't do it, which I take that with a grain of salt. Say something happened and McDonald says tomorrow, I can't be the coach of Australia anymore. I think if the Australian Brains Trust went to Disney and said, hey, we need you, he'd be there. But he's not interested in a full-time position and he wants to do part-time. And look, if I'm Jason Gillespie, I mean, this is the smart thing to do. And this is why it's so hard to get international good coaches for international teams, because the best way to do it is say what Ricky Ponting does. You work, say, in the IPL, you do that a few months a year. So it's not no time. I mean, Ponting's be over there for probably 2 or 3 months in this stint. But you do that, you get paid handsomely for that. But you have outside of that, you have broadcasting contracts, especially at home. So Ponting, does the home Australian summer. So he's around his friends and family. And, you get the best of both worlds. You can still coach and you can earn the living coaching, but it's not full time. You can do broadcast stuff and spend time at home with your family. So, if I'm Gillespie or any other of these retired players, maybe you do some international coaching to get it on your CV, and then you get straight back into short form coaching and get that sweet cash without the full time commitment. All right, so that's Jason Gillespie. Now, it's interesting. I made some comments with Damien Watson around the findings from the World Cricketers Association. And there was a study and a survey conducted, and we talked about it on the Cricket Unfiltered with Damien. I think it was an episode before last. And, me and Damien both kind of said, look, some of this stuff was good in theory, but it was plainly impossible to implement and kind of idealistic. And I, as you know, listeners, I keep my ear to the ground. What other cricket podcasters and what are the cricket journalists writing and saying about this same World Cricketers Association report? And actually, good friends of mine, Pete Lawler and Gideon Hay, had Tom Moffat on their podcast recently, and he's part of the World Cricketers Association, and he was talking about that said report. And, I think broadly speaking, the sentiment around it seems to be pretty universal, that it's good in theory, but, never going to happen, impossible to implement, and plainly a little bit too idealistic. And the way I see it is, I heard Tom Moffat talking about it, that, there is an element to this that seems to be, I wouldn't say anti-India or anti the big three, but there seems to be certainly an anti-Indian element to this, where that they want more of the pie, but India generates so much of the wealth, they want to keep it all. Not they don't want to keep it all; they want to keep a lot of it. So that was part of it. It's always about finances. Can they squeeze more money out of India to then give that to the other countries. That seems part of it. There also seems to be an element to kind of break up the Indian monopoly of the timetable, the fact that you've got the IPL window for so long, and then, India sort of determines who and where they'll play, and that has so much of a bearing on world cricket's finances. And that's where there seemed to be a discussion about international windows. So, you'd have international windows like in soccer, and, in between them, you could play T20 leagues. And that's where this Saudi league seems to be coming in, which seems to be an apparatus to use as leverage against the Indians. So, if the Saudis are willing to sink a significant amount of money into a global T20 league that, will fit in between the international windows, what I think there's a move to do is give players an alternative to being wedded to Indian cricket clubs. So if you don't want to play ball with India, you can come and play in this other league and do it in between international windows. And they're also, Tom Moffat was saying that, they want to get Indian players playing in other leagues around the world to basically spread the talent around and give everyone a chance to have some of these global superstars in their leagues. And so this is all great, but why would India do this? Why would they sanction this? Why would they play ball with this? Why would they take away the value of the IPL by allowing their players to go and play in other leagues? Why would they even agree to this? I mean, they're just not going to play ball. And if India doesn't play ball, the whole thing doesn't get off the ground. So I think the notions around it are interesting. Like, I do think we will see international windows soon, sanctioned international windows. But if India says, "Oh, look, no, we don't. Those windows don't suit us," then they're not going to work. And that's the simple fact of the matter. So, yeah, I don't want to say it was a waste of time, but I think it was a waste of time. I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. It was a waste of time. I mean, you could have said all that. I mean, you could have got together 3 or 4 cricket podcasters and said, and we could have all thrown out that shit. That, oh, we'd love this, and oh, wouldn't it be great if this? Fortunately, the world doesn't like that. The world doesn't work like that. It's just not the way it works. So it's never going to happen. All right. More news. Let's head across to the IPL. So I actually think now we're sort of far enough into the IPL, we can look at the ladder and point out the placings. I think probably too early in that first couple of weeks, especially with the extra teams, now 10 teams. You do need a few weeks for the ladder to really show anything. And I think it's interesting to see who's at the bottom and who's at the top. Mumbai Indians, Chennai Super Kings, and Sunrisers Hyderabad, they're not the top 3 teams, as you might have expected me to say. They're the bottom 3 teams. So 3 big names pinned to the bottom. Mumbai and the Sunrisers played 5 games for just 1 win. CSK 6 games for just 1 win. So pretty disastrous starts for all 3 of those teams. Then you got the Rajasthan Royals. They're 4th from the bottom on 4 points. Then you got 4 teams on 6 points. Lucknow, Punjab Super Kings, RCB, and KKR. And then at the top, and this is interesting, Gujarat Titans. They've been performing pretty well in the IPL over the last couple of years. 5 games, 4 wins, 8 points. And Delhi Capitals undefeated, 4 games, 4 wins. So Delhi Capitals out of the blocks fast. New coach this year, Faf du Plessis and Jake Fraser McGurk opening up. And so I think, look, anyone, if you're 6 points, you're feeling pretty good now. So it's probably there's a real bottleneck on those top 6 teams, but Rajasthan Royals, Mumbai, CSK, and Sunrisers, they need to start winning games before they'll be left behind. And that is one of the downsides to this new 10-team league, that I have found it can lose interest if teams down the bottom start to drop off. when it's 8 teams, you pretty much always in contention unless you're going really badly. But now with 10 teams, you can get left behind and then your season's gone. So that's why I think, yeah, I like a relegation promotion system because it stops that happening, or maybe even an extra finalist just to, another knockout round at the beginning to keep more people interested. Um, but yeah, we'll see. I'm actually, there's some questions in the chat. I'm going to get to them at the end. So if you've got questions, if you're watching live, put them in the YouTube chat and I'll answer them at the end. With the stats so far in the IPL, I guess for Australian interest, Mitch Marsh is third leading run scorer. He's made 4 half centuries in his 5 innings, strike rate of 180. He's hit 15 sixes already, so he's in fine form. And, he's such an important member of Australia's white ball teams, fallen out of the test side, but still our T20 captain, and great to see him batting well. There's a T20 World Cup early next year, and he's locked in to be our captain. And then with the bowlers, for Australia, Mitchell Starc, 9 wickets so far. His strike rate's pretty good, a wicket every 9 balls, 9.77 balls, but his economy rate of 9.47 is a little high, but we've seen with Starc before. I mean, he's a big match player, so I expect him to come good at the end. Josh Hazlewood, 8 wickets so far, strike rate 14.12, economy 8.65. That's quite good. He's been very good for RCB so far. And, it's just such a phenomenal white ball bowler. And again, coming back from injury, missed, some cricket for Australia over the summer, a lot of cricket for Australia over the summer. So good to see him back out there and playing cricket in the lead up to the World Test Championship final. There are reports that the Big Bash is looking to supercharge itself now that they've seen what happened with the 100 sale. So I can see, and look, there's been changes at Cricket Australia. Obviously, Nick Hockley, the CEO, has left, and we have a new CEO in Todd Greenberg. And I think we'll see now maybe a more financially driven BBL for the simple reason that if they don't, they're going to get left behind. It's just that simple. They have to. They have to look at privatization. They have to look at expansion. They have to look at ways of bringing more money to the game. So yeah, exciting to see how that plays out. Another report has come out from Cricket Australia that Meg Lanning will be a coaching assistant in this year's Lanning v Perry series in Brisbane. So that's a women's cricket series. I think it's being played now or very soon. Meg Lanning is coaching there, and I'd love to see her getting into the coaching ranks because she hasn't been lost to cricket. She's still been playing in T20 leagues, but she's such a great cricket mind, so good as Australian captain. It'd be great to see her coaching and mentoring some young Australian players coming through. And I guess we've all had times in our lives where you drift in and out of things, and maybe the period where Lanning drifted away from cricket and retired from Australian cricket, maybe she'll, as she drifted away, she'll drift back. Maybe she'll even come back to international cricket. She could still play for Australia. She's still good enough, still young enough. I'll just get exactly how old she is, but she's only 33, so she's still got a few good years playing left in her. But either way, whether it's coming back as a coach or a player, it'd be great to see her drift back to the game. And then finally, which will tie into the last question, county cricket round 2 is underway, and a lot of Australians over there doing well in action. Pete Hanscom, Fergus O'Neill, lots of players are over there in county cricket, and more are going over as the season continues. But I guess the couple of players I want to talk about are Marcus Harris and Cameron Bancroft. So Marcus Harris made a century in round 1, and Cameron Bancroft just arrived in England and made a century for Gloucestershire. His captaincy debut for them made 163 for Cameron Bancroft, and we know he's done very, 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 very well on in county seasons in the past. So I guess what I want to talk about with Harris and Bancroft is, have the selectors moved on from them? Now, it would appear they have, but you never draw a line completely through a player. And I wonder, looking at the World Test Championship final, whether they really will push for consistency and it'll be Sam Constas opening there, or if they do something radical and move Marnus to open. But, whether they stick with the batters who have, really been a part of that Australian top 6 or 7 over the last, 6 to 12 months, or do the selectors see what Harris and Bancroft are doing, and if they can continue to pile on the runs at county level, do they think, wow, well, for a one-off game in England, and Harris scored that 100 at Lords, where the World Test Championship final is going to be, do we pick one of them? Just purely, it's a one-off game against South Africa. These guys are playing in county cricket. They know the conditions, and take your pick, whether it's Harris or Bancroft who gets the nod. But I just wonder what Bailey and co are thinking. I don't think the contract list is particularly a good guide for that, because a lot's going to change with this team pretty quickly. After the World Test Championship final, they go to the West Indies, then England come here. Conditions in the West Indies are going to be totally different to what they get at Lords. So, you could definitely see a world in which these selectors go, let's just pick a team to win this final. And then, what happens after that will look after itself. I personally think you need to stick with your plan and go with Constas and open with him. If you really want to squeeze like a Cameron Green or an Inglis in there, maybe you can say, Marnus, look, it's either open or you're going to get dropped. But that's sort of the way I feel about it. I just wonder, if Bancroft and Harris continue to, plunder runs at county level, will it put them in strong contention for that World Test Championship final? I'm not sure. I am not sure. All right, so that's it for all the cricket news for this week. I'm going to be back next week, full episode with Damien Watson. Do you have a question here from Rumpole on the Hill? Oh, hi, Menners. Have you been watching the county cricket on YouTube, getting great viewing numbers and listening on BBC Sports? Rumpole, I haven't actually been watching too much yet. And see, last year, I definitely did watch quite a bit on YouTube. I think it's fantastic that it's so readily available on YouTube. So good for the game. You can tune into it. There's commentary. So yeah, I really love it. I love the buzz of an English summer. I don't like it when the buzz is, grotesque sledges directed at the Aussie team, but when it's just that nice, serene English summer. And I've spent a lot of time at county level. Sorry, not playing at county level, watching county cricket. Lived in the UK, a couple of times, been to Chelmsford, Lords, the Oval, Canterbury, when the tree was still on there. And, the county cricket is such a pure form of the game. It is really for the cricket badgers, a bit like Sheffield Shield cricket here. And yeah, really glad they're covering it. And he suggested Sheffield Shield should follow county cricket's lead on YouTube and SEN should do the comms. Well, SEN shouldn't do the comms. I think it's common. Cricket Australia do it, which I do sometimes, as you know. Yeah, they could actually put it on YouTube because it's free. It's on KO and it's on the Cricket Australia app, but you may as well put it on YouTube. And my thing is, I don't think Cricket Australia have done enough in monetizing the Sheffield Shield streams. I think if you put it on YouTube, you put it on KO, you put it on the CA app, combined viewing figures for those platforms would be pretty high. I think you could actually get some pretty good sponsorships, which could be used to put back in the game. All right, well, that's it for this edition of Cricket Unfiltered, recorded live Saturday afternoon, the 12th of April. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. All the links are in the episode notes if you want to support the show, if you want the ad-free version on Patreon. So, as you know, ads are inserted in. If you're sick of them, it's really affordable. Just go on Patreon. You can subscribe. You get the ad-free version released there. And if you want to get in touch, as I said, a lot of time now with the off season to answer questions. So feel free to reach out. And you've been listening to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast, and we'll be back soon.